This page is the glorious front cover, N64 Pro Issue 4 from back in February '98, letting us know everyone was absolutely mad for N64. The big draw here is Yoshi's Story, hyped up as a potential platform game of the year, with a whole gaggle of those colourful dinosaurs plastered right across the page. They also tease glimpses of WCW vs NWO, FIFA 98, naturally, and the legendary Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. Inside, they promise looks at Aero Fighters Assault, Mortal Kombat Mythologies, a beat-em-up twist, Tonic Trouble, Raymond's mate getting a look in, and all the essential hints and cheats you could ever need. Plus, how could you miss the promise of the final GoldenEye guide part, Diddy Kong racing tips, and even Pocket Monsters? A solid lineup of 90s N64 goodness right there. This page features the brilliant Diddy Kong racing, highlighting just how bonkers the tracks were, with a cracking visual of a battered helmet, showing impacts from everything from a fence post nail to pterodactyl droppings and even monkey brains. It shouts, "Adventurers wanted," and reminds us that Diddy Kong racing knows no limits, promising free-roaming adventure across land, sea, and air, requiring guts, speed, and savvy. You can race with a plane, car, or hovercraft, featuring 4-player action, 8 characters, and a whopping 30 tracks. They even give a nod to the Rumble Park, ensuring you feel every single impact. The message is clear: victory is out there. Go get it. Race. Off to the right, we get a peek at the team and their New Year's high resolutions. Quite amusing stuff, really. Alex wants to watch more football and sort his IBS. Jim is aiming to ditch the cigars and beat Alex at cricket. Good luck with that. While Steve apparently just never makes any. Noelle needs a haircut, and to stop treating the office like a social club, Mark's changing his bread and trying harder at ISS 64, a noble goal. And Lewis is trying to figure out marriage and get more freebies. Gives you a good chuckle reading what the chaps were up to back then. At the bottom you see the staff list and contact details for the magazine itself. This 1998 gaming magazine issue features previews and reviews of popular titles like FIFA 98, Clay Fighter, and Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Highlights include a humorous severed hand gag from Clay Fighter, news about sick Japanese kids and flashing Pikachu eyes, and a free game guide with details on upcoming releases like Yoshi's Story. Reviews cover various games, noting FIFA 98's improved performance, and critical opinions on others like Bomberman 64 and Automobili Lamborghini. The issue also includes codes, tips, and guides, along with features about the ISS 64 and console accessories. This page is our special report from Space World 97 over in Japan, brought to you by our very own Akira Yamawaki. Apparently there were whispers that Nintendo might be on the ropes, but according to Akira, the show proved everyone wrong, with tens of thousands flocking to see the goods. The big draws were clearly Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and 1080 degrees snowboarding. Our man got handsome with Zelda, and declares it's everything we were hoping for and more, showing Link riding Epona and exploring snowy areas. Miyamoto himself is quoted saying it'll change how people think about RPGs, which is high praise indeed. Just a shame we have to wait until next summer for it. Typical Nintendo timekeeping. But perhaps the standout was 1080 degrees snowboarding. Akira was absolutely buzzing about it, calling it potentially the best snowboarding game ever, even though it was only 80% complete. He raved about the graphics, the feel of the controls for speed and tricks, and the realism. Seems like the developers really nailed the slopes on this one, with screenshots showing off the action. It sounds like a treat for anyone who loves pulling off radical moves on the digital snow. Even Miyamoto is streamlining his workload, focusing on just a handful of key N64 titles now. Looks like the N64 is finally hitting its stride. Space World 97 coverage highlights the delayed 64DD. F-Zero X is praised for its blistering speed and smooth framerate, despite simple backgrounds. NBA basketball, with licensing and realistic players, is well received. The Pokémon games include a voice recognition title, a battling stadium game, and the photo-focused Pokémon Snap. Jungle Emperor Leo, featuring Miyamoto, is visually basic but potentially interesting. A Bomberman 64 advertisement is also featured. Jashu. Nintendo's 64DD is highlighted as a platform for innovative software, with a focus on creative tools and unique gameplay. A preview reveals Mario Artist, a suite of creative tools, and Banjo-Kazooie, a potential competitor to Mario 64. Super Mario RPG 2 integrates 2D and 3D elements, and Earthbound 64, the next Mother game, promises enhanced graphics and humor. Nintendo President Yamauchi emphasizes the need for compelling titles to justify the 64D's delayed release. Japanese N64 and 64DD. Games show a variety of styles. SimCity 64 on 64DD boasts impressive 3D visuals. Other notable titles include Aerogauge, NBA in the Zone, and a possible Suikoden conversion. Yoshi's Story impresses with its enhanced 2D graphics and gameplay. Derby Stallion, a horse racing sim linking to a Game Boy version, and Bio-Tetris, a heart rate sensitive Tetris game, highlight the system's unique offerings. Despite overseas success, Nintendo President Yamauchi noted the Japanese market's lukewarm response, potentially due to missing genres. This page kicks off with a look at the games shown at Space World, giving us a list of playable and not-so-playable titles, including classics like Yoshi's Story, F-Zero-X, and Banjo-Kazooie on the playable side. You've got screenshots dotted about showing off Diddy Kong Racing, and what looks like Mario from Banjo-Kazooie, plus some of the less common ones like the football or hockey games. Then, right there in the middle, you've got the beast, the worldwide release schedule for 1998 and beyond. Now, we're not going to list every single game and date, mind, that would take all day. But it's a cracking look at what was coming out across the globe, Japan, the US and the UK, with a handy color key so you know who gets what first. Loads of big names in there obviously, and some stuff you might have completely forgotten about. Down at the bottom they're having a bit of a chinwag about games that strangely weren't shown at Space World 97, like Body Harvest, the intriguing Silicon Valley game, and even Banjo-Kazooie, which sounds bonkers given how hyped it was. And finishing things off, Nintendo's main man Yamauchi talks about getting Pokémon ready for a worldwide audience, admitting they need to tweak things for different tastes. Seems fair enough, I suppose. The article covers various Nintendo 64 news, including US/UK releases for Art of Fighting and Aerogauge, and potential issues for Mission Impossible. Square's Project Cairo, an RPG with Americanized characters and comic book license, boasts graphics as good as Final Fantasy V2. Rare is developing the next Bond game, but it's Black Ops, not Rare, handling the sequel to GoldenEye, expected within 18 months. The article also details intriguing accessories, like a capture cartridge, mouse, voice recognition headset, and a 64 GB pack for Game Boy connectivity, as well as a biofeedback device for Bio-Tetris. Finally, Rare confirms Donkey Kong Country 64 is in development. The article concludes with UK sales charts, pro player rankings, and popular game demand. This page reviews FIFA 98, Road to World Cup, making it abundantly clear from the start that this is a vast improvement over the rather dismal FIFA 64. Despite some initial doubts about the player models and kits, the reviewer found this Canadian-made footy sim to be surprisingly deep and incredibly addictive, especially the single-player journey to the World Cup. The management side, dubbed Warren Manager, lets you tinker with your squad, transfers and training, which is a nice touch. While the goalkeepers can be a bit suspect, particularly on the lower difficulty settings, and the ball physics can be a tad unpredictable, the game offers a solid challenge, especially in defending. The review touches upon the different tackle types available. Boketjin screenshots showcase various aspects: goal celebrations, offsides, an injury pop-up, match stats, and different stadiums under the around the ground section. There are also glimpses of varied weather conditions and game scenarios, like fouls and corners. It seems injuries and bookings could be turned off, which is always handy. Overall, it sounds like a decent kickabout, with good potential. A FIFA 98 review praises a significant improvement over the preview version. Controls, especially for tricks and tackles, are highlighted, along with the engaging indoor five-a-side mode, detail in stadiums, like the San Siro, and the ability to play as legends like Shearer, are also positive aspects. While some feel it doesn't quite reach the level of ISS 64, especially concerning goalkeeping, the overall consensus is a solid game with comprehensive options, earning a respectable 87% score. EA's turnaround is lauded as a successful effort. This page jumps headfirst into the review of Clayfighter 63 1/3, and right away the tone is set with the question, where are Wallace and Gromit when you need them? It seems Interplay were so confident in this one they held back review copies until it had a few weeks free on the shelves, which, let's be honest, usually tells you all you need to know. The game is a beat-em-up, featuring some truly bizarre characters like Kung Pao, a Statue of Liberty chap, a clown, a blob, and a sumo wrestler. While the claymation style is there, the animation is described as jerky, and the overall humor relying on racial stereotypes is a bit hit and miss. The gameplay? Apparently, it boils down to little more than frantic button mashing, with tactics seeming to go out the window. The reviewer struggles to see the value, especially for 50 quid, for a game that apparently offers so little depth and can potentially be finished within hours. It's painted as a chow-tatic, confusing mess that even the reviewer finds difficult to defend. This page continues the Clayfighter 63 1/3 review, delivering the final verdict. After much deliberation, the reviewer lands on a not-so-stellar 39%, stating it's slightly better than War Gods, high praise indeed, but ultimately a total travesty, and simply not worth the price. Screenshots show the Chow Stick gameplay, featuring characters like the Snowman and the Pumpkin Guy, reinforcing the earlier points about it being a button-mashing free-for-all. The write-up laments the apparent lack of effort and missed potential, suggesting it's a game only small children might tolerate for its cartoony appeal. Reader feedback is also highlighted, with one chap from Dover declaring it terrible, and struggling for words to describe how bad it is, summing it up as quite frankly awful. On the right side, we're treated to a much more positive outlook, with a big splash for Top Gear Rally. Featuring a sleek racing car kicking up dust, this section hypes up the game's features: 5 tracks, multiple racing modes, variable weather, and car customization options. It even boasts a quote from Nintendo magazine calling it the best racing simulation for the N64. The accompanying ratings boxes show strong scores for things like stereo sound and precision control, culminating in an impressive 90% from N64 magazine. Definitely a stark contrast to the fighting game on the left. This page dives into a review of Aerofighter's Assault, asking straight up if it's a flight sim or a shoot 'em up, and frankly whether anyone really cares. Clocking in at a rather steep £64.99, it's pitched as a shoot 'em up, and the review wastes no time setting the scene, clearly preferring action over the dullness of realistic flight simulators. You get your pick of 4 different planes, including the classic F-14 Tomcat and the mightier 10 Thunderbolt, each with their own weapons like the faithful Vulcan cannon and missiles you apparently have in unlimited supply. The gameplay is described as having a bit of tactical flair, like Lilac Wars but with realistic controls, though the reviewer quickly points out those controls are actually a bit sluggish and awkward, leading to disorientation and crashes. There's even a diagram showing the N64 pad with all the controls labeled, handy if you can get them to behave. Quickie screenshots litter the page, showing off the action against bases, submarines, and giant robot bosses, giving a flavor of the targets you'll be blasting. However, the review notes the graphics aren't exactly stunning, with some flat-looking planes and poor backgrounds, and bosses lacking animation. The biggest gripe seems to be the lack of proper close-up dogfighting, as infinite missiles encourage long-range blasting. Plus, the on-screen Yuffie seems to get in the way, which is never ideal when you're trying to line up a shot. This page wraps up the Aerofighter's Assault review, slapping it with a rather average 68% N64 score. The write-up concludes that it sits awkwardly between a flight sim and a shoot 'em up, not really excelling at either, and suggests you're better off sticking to Lilac Wars for your blasting fix. There are quick takes from a few others too, like Alex, Steve, and Noelle, and a reader review, with most agreeing it's not really hitting the mark and mentioning the graphics are a bit pants. On the right, there's a cool advert showing off Mischief Makers with a cheeky note and a huge 90% score from N64 magazine, promoting Marina light years and the power of the Nintendo 64 console itself. This page tackles the highly anticipated Bomberman 64 review, and sadly it seems the classic series didn't quite nail the transition to the N64, with the headline declaring it fizzles out. The reviewer, Noelle, lays out his disappointment, comparing it to a blind date gone wrong, having expected the classic Bomberman but getting something quite different. While acknowledging it's got an inevitable N64 overhaul, with 3D action and an improved one-player game, he feels it ultimately failed to set our world alight. The review discusses the move from the flat, maze-like arenas of old, to new 3D levels across distinct worlds like ice and lava. The single-player mode, split over 5 worlds, is described as confusing and aimless at times. The multiplayer still supports up to 4 players, but the switch to 3D and a new analog stick aiming system makes direct bombing tricky initially, although it apparently gets better with practice. Teach. Screenshots show off the new 3D environments, from rocky paths to icy landscapes and volcanic areas, highlighting the game's colorful but somewhat simplistic look. Despite the potential, Bomberman 64 scores a rather average 73%. Other takes chime in, with Alex equally disappointed, Steve never liking the original but finding this lacking in gameplay, and Mark feeling it was a big letdown that the manic gameplay vanished. Seems like not everyone agrees, but the consensus leans towards disappointment compared to the series' NES heyday. This page shifts gears dramatically from the Bomberman mazes to the high-octane world of Automobili Lamborghini. With a name that sounds suitably posh, you'd hope this would be the N64's answer to the racing game Void, especially after some recent disappointments. Alas, the reviewer's first impression is that the fancy name might be the most exciting thing about it. While there's a range of classic Lamborghinis like the Countach and Diablo to choose from, the game seems plagued by fiddly controls. The analog stick handling is tricky, and using the C buttons for gears instead of the standard R/Z setup feels just plain wrong. The graphics are described as a bit bland, with a low camera angle that makes the cars look somewhat squashed, which isn't ideal when you're trying to appreciate these beautiful machines tearing around the 6 different tracks. The E apparently has a strange tendency to just crash into you, bless 'em. A unique touch mentioned is the inclusion of pit stops in the tournament mode, requiring you to manage fuel and tires, which adds a bit more strategy. Screenshots show various views of the action, from tight corners to the starting grid, and even those pit lane moments. Despite some potentially interesting ideas, it sounds like this racer didn't quite live up to the hype it initially generated. The next page continues the Automobili Lamborghini review, unfortunately confirming the initial fears. The reviewer sarcastically calls the game the Automobili Skoda favorite, highlighting the disappointing speed and the utterly unconvincing feel of driving through mud. The controls are still lambasted as fiddly, and the courses as boring, leading to a poor final verdict. Reviewer comments echo the sentiment, calling it slow, dull and uninspiring, ultimately giving it a rather dismal 39% score. Shift your gaze though, and you're hit with a vibrant yellow ad for WCW vs NWO World Tour. Featuring the iconic faces of Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair and Kevin Nash, this wrestling title asks the important question: are your friends always picking on you? It prominently boasts up to 4-player head-to-head action, and includes screenshots of the in-ring brutality. A ringing endorsement declares, "It must be played, even if you're not a fan, it's that good," and a score of 92% total 64. Looks like this one delivered where the racer failed. This page lands us squarely in the world of puzzle games, with a review of Tetrisphere for the N64. The big red title shouts from the page, proclaiming, "Puzzle games have finally come full circle. Tetris has indeed gone spherical, trading flat lines for a ball of blocks you spin, match, and remove to create holes, and, apparently, rescue little robots trapped inside. There are different bots with various abilities, like Wheels, Jack, and Rocket, and several modes to tackle, from the main rescue mission to puzzle and hide and seek." However, despite looking quite sharp with lush colors and smooth rotation, the review isn't exactly a rave. The main critique is that while it's pretty and has a nice chill soundtrack, the gameplay itself is rather slow and dull. The reviewer got bored after hitting level 40 and didn't even bother finishing, suggesting it lacks the hook of the original. The final score of 60% isn't exactly setting the world alight, backed up by the breakdown, showing good marks for graphics and sound, but poor ones for gameplay and lastability. The mini-reviews echo the sentiment. It's seen as a failed attempt to update Tetris, not particularly exciting, and didn't grab everyone, though one reader did find it a good puzzle game. Seems like this spherical outing didn't quite capture the magic. A review of WCW vs NW World Tour examines the game's wrestling mechanics and presentation. The reviewer, while not a wrestling fan, finds the game visually appealing, with impressive graphics and detailed characters. The game's core gameplay involves hitting, throwing, pinning, and submitting opponents, showcasing a violent yet cartoonish style. The factions, WCW and NWO, are detailed, along with notable characters like Hulk Hogan's surprising switch to the NWO. The reviewer praises the game's visual fidelity and character representation, even noting the game's ability to capture the exaggerated, almost theatrical nature of wrestling. Despite finding the subject matter somewhat uninspiring, the reviewer concludes the game is well made visually. WCW vs NW World Tour offers 5 game modes, including a 4-player battle mode, with 45 wrestlers and custom moves. Controls initially feel frantic, but become manageable with button and stick combinations for throws and holds. A spirit meter impacts wrestler performance based on hits and crowd response. Despite not being a wrestling aficionado, the reviewer rates the game highly, 80%, praising graphics, gameplay, and replayability, while sound receives a slightly lower score. The game features various wrestling maneuvers, some quite bizarre, and is enjoyable for solo and multiplayer play, though not universally loved. This page brings back the Goal of the Month feature, showcasing the 6 of the best 2 goals from what looks like a rather cracking footy game, probably International Superstar Soccer on the N64 if I remember right. Alex Lee rounds up some absolute screamers and, let's be honest, a couple of proper flukes too. You get to see 6 different goals broken down step by step, with action replays shown in sequential screenshots. We've got everything from an unfortunate own goal, always hurts, and a bizarre follow-up effort, to a spectacular overhead kick from a corner, rounding the keeper, humiliating the poor soul in goal, and a cracking Mark Hughes-style volley. There's also a handy top ways to score section, giving you a few pointers on how to bag goals yourself, like the parallel run into the box, or different types of corner kicks. If you fancy yourself as a virtual goal connoisseur, they're asking you to vote for your favorite for a chance to win a game. Good stuff, though watching these just makes you want to load up the console and try them yourself. This page kicks off a cracking guide to Diddy Kong Racing, calling it the Driver's Guide Part 1. You get a big splash image of Diddy Kong looking serious in his kart, Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie fame waving the checkered flag, and that slightly irritating timer character. It's promising to give you all the info you need to master the game, focusing on driving technique and knowing your vehicle. It breaks down the 3 main types you'll be using: the good old car, the plane, which sounds a bit fiddly to learn, and the hovercraft with its rather useful hopping ability. There are sections on crucial driving techniques, like getting a perfect turbo start, mastering the braking turn, and hitting those speed-boosting super zippers. The guide also covers the racing tips, like how to use the power-ups effectively, apparently less destructive than Mario Kart, thank goodness, the importance of collecting bananas, aim for 10, and a look at the different characters. They list stats for characters like Crunch, Pipsy, Banjo, Timber, Diddy Kong, Bumper, Tip-Top, and Conker, highlighting their top speed, acceleration, weight, handling, and even their dance moves. It seems like knowing who's good in a straight line versus who can corner, like they're on rails, is pretty important. There's also a brief mention of the silver coin challenges, advising you grab the harder coins early. Looks like a decent primer for getting good at the game. This page moves on to the track guides for Diddy Kong Racing, starting with the lovely Dino Domain area. It covers Ancient Lake, which is described as a nice easy one, great for getting the hang of things, especially for taking on Crunch in time trials. Apparently, there's a sneaky shortcut across the grass if you're feeling a bit racy. Then it dives into Fossil Canyon, calling it a difficult little course. The guide points out the trickiest bits are a tight left before a tunnel and a zipper on a sharp right. It provides step-by-step tips with screenshots, showing you where to grab bananas, hit the zippers, and even mentions a potential power-up spot and a shortcut over the lake if you're feeling brave. Finally, there's Jungle Falls, another tricky one according to the magazine. The main hazard here is falling into the water, which slows you right down. The guide shows you how to navigate the course, pick up bananas, hit turbos, and even find a hidden zipper inside a dinosaur skeleton for a final boost towards the finish line. It's packed with maps and screenshots to show you the optimal lines and item locations. You also get a big picture of Crunch in his motor, looking suitably grumpy. This guide details Diddy Kong Racing's Hot Top Volcano course, praising its challenging time trials and excellent music. Step-by-step instructions, including banana locations, shortcuts, and turbo zipper spots, are provided with screenshots. Strategies for defeating Tricky the Dino boss, including using power-ups and a crucial shortcuts, are also outlined. The guide then moves to Snowflake Mountain Snowball Alley, emphasizing avoiding snowballs and grabbing bananas for speed. Finally, it highlights finding the Snowflake Mountain Battle Key, unlocking a subsequent battle challenge. This page continues the Diddy Kong Racing strategies from the snowy parts of the game, part of the trusty cheat zone section. We're diving into 3 more tracks here. First up, Frosty Village, where you'll get pointers on nailing that tricky right-hander and using the speed zippers hidden behind those trees. Essential stuff if you want to leave the competition in the dust. Then we head over to Everfrost Peak, which apparently was a real office favorite, especially for time trials. The key here is staying low from the start and hitting those floor zippers, then mastering flying through the tunnels and swooping down to grab bananas and power-ups. It seems you need to get a bit creative with your flight path to maximize your speed. Finally, it's Walrus Cove, where the big worry is those icy banks before the fork. The guide tells you how to navigate the corners tightly to hit the speed zippers on the straights, and even suggests how to blast over the icy patches with a turbo boost if you're feeling brave. Plus it confirms that left fork is the quickest route to the finish line, as long as you hit the zipper. Looks like plenty of banana collecting and careful driving, or flying/hovering, is the order of the day across these chilly courses. You even get to see Tipped Up the Turtle making an appearance. This page is back in the trusty cheat zone, still dishing out the goods for Diddy Kong Racing. We're moving on from the icy plains to tackle a boss and some tricky tracks. Bukabe. First up, it's the Walrus boss. The guide gives you the rundown on getting a good start, using your power-ups effectively to take him down, and keeping things tidy on the course rather than bouncing off the banks. Solid advice really. Don't be a muppet and stay on the track. Then we hit Whale Bay, and you get a nice little map showing you the lines to take. Lots of talk about hitting those water tunnels for speed, grabbing bananas, obviously it's DKR, and mastering the corners. There's even a mention of a proper Diddy Kong expert shortcut over the whale itself, but if you're not quite ready for that, they offer an easier route. Finally, Crescent Island gets the treatment. This one's apparently all about the shortcuts to nab pole position, including dropping through a ship. Sounds a bit daft, but hey, if it gets you ahead. Again, the map points out the key spots for zips, bananas, and staying tight on those crucial bends to cut out the slow bits. You even get to see Pipsy the mouse, looking rather chirpy, ready to put these tips to good use. This page is carrying on with the Diddy Kong Racing cheat sheet, digging into a couple more areas from the game. First up, we're tackling treasure caves. The guide says it's mostly a doddle, but watch out for that watery chicane bit. Apparently, mastering that is the key. It gives you the line to take off the start, where to find a couple of handy zippers, and points out where those essential bananas are lurking. There's even a little note about a shortcut if you're in the plane, which is always a nice bonus for those who've unlocked it. The maps and screenshots show you the score, so you can see the route laid out nice and clear. Door. Then it's on to the octopus boss. This one's all about dodging bubbles, apparently, and using your power-ups effectively. The steps tell you exactly where to find missiles and turbos, and how to deploy them to take that oversized cephalopod down. It stresses planning your route early, as hovercraft are a bit of a pain to adjust quickly. Sounds about right, always a bit floaty those things. Again, you get the visual aids with maps and screenshots to show you the path to victory. Looking ahead, they're promising guides for Dragon Forest, Future Fun Land, and the Big Bad Whizpig next month. Looks like plenty more karting goodness to come. You've got Diddy Kong and Timber looking ready for action in their hovercraft on this spread too. This page is ditching the racing overalls and getting into the sharp suit, moving on to the GoldenEye 007 Expert Guide, picking up with Part 3. It dives into a couple of levels, starting with the Aztec Complex. The guide gives you the lowdown on getting the shuttle ready for launch, which involves a bit of sneaking and dealing with loads of enemies. You'll meet Jaws again, naturally. Just aim for his gnashers apparently. You've got to mess about with computers and consoles to get the guidance data sorted. It's all laid out with steps and a map, starting from the start point down the bottom. Then it's off to the Egyptian temple. This level's the big one. Find the legendary golden gun and then put paid to Baron Samedi. Be quick on your feet, as there are guards everywhere. There's a warning about a puzzle room you have to navigate just right, or you'll be toast from machine guns. Once you've got the golden gun, Samedi comes out to play. The guide reckons the first couple of encounters are easy with the one-hit wonder, but the final fight with his lightsabers requires careful movement and cover. There's a key for the maps showing armor, computers, consoles, machine guns, and Samedi locations. And looking on, giving his approval, is Pierce Brosnan himself, ready for action. This website provides cheat codes for various video games, enabling players to unlock hidden features and achieve victory easily. Games covered include Aerofighter's Assault, Plane Customization, F-15 Unlock, F1 Pole Position, Secret Car, ISS-64, Size and Appearance Changes, Player Name-Based Codes, Mischief Makers, Maze Solutions, NFL Quarterback Club, Player Attribute Modification, and San Francisco Rush, Secret Areas, Gravity Manipulation, Vehicle Transformations. Screenshots showcase the effects of the cheats. The overall theme is bypassing game mechanics for fun and immediate success. This page is all about getting that unfair advantage with the action replay, Datel's legendary cheating kit. As they say themselves, they're in the business of cheating, turning those standard games into wild electric experiences. It's where you'd go to make sure you had the edge, whether you were messing about with mates or just trying to get past a tricky bit. Warranties. You've got cheats here for loads of classics. Bomberman 64, for unlimited lives and gems, makes battling the CPU a bit boring, but multiplayer chows with invincibility. Yes please. Extreme G lets you unlock bikes and rack up points instantly. GoldenEye? Infinite health and ammo, obviously, so you can finally get through that damn level without getting shot to bits. Lylat Wars gives you infinite lives and bombs for tackling Starwolf. There are codes for MRC, Pilot Wings, Unlimited Fuel, and Shadows of the Empire 2. And of course the big one, Super Mario 64. Unlimited lives, health, energy, even turning Mario into weird forms like Limbo Mario or Big Fist Mario. Plus, cheats for Wave Race 64 to mess with speed. The screenshots show off some of the action, like Bomberman Chow's, GoldenEye's iconic view, Pilot Wings flying, and Mario looking a bit peaky. This page is the key to bypassing the grind and just having a laugh. This page dives into something a bit different, Mortal Kombat mythologies. Sub-Zero, just when you thought you had the combat formula down, Midway goes and throws a curveball, turning their legendary fighter into a side-scrolling action-adventure with bits of RPG thrown in. Yes really, Kogori. It's less about beating 7 shades out of your mate in a versus match, and more about following Sub-Zero's quest against the evil elder god Shinnok. Apparently this was always planned by the original creators, a way to flesh out the lore. You'll see screens of Sub-Zero looking rather stoic, some dark and moody environments, and even a glimpse of the main villain, Shinnok, looking suitably sinister. The game mechanics sound intriguing, letting Sub-Zero climb ropes and crawl through vents, mixed in with his usual ice-based attacks, jumps, and kicks. They reckon the lighting effects are decent, and the sound design, like the wind, adds to the atmosphere. It's certainly a departure, focusing on a single character's story rather than the usual tournament brawl. Seems Midway is promising plenty of the series' signature violence too, which is nice. It's a prequel, setting things up for Mortal Kombat 4, and promises to delve into the background of these characters. This page is all about the absolute colossus that is The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Fresh from Japan, it seems our man over there got his hands on Link's latest adventure and was suitably blown away. The main feature, penned by Akira Yamawaki, talks about just how revolutionary this game feels. Even in a short preview, it seems to have made quite the impression, leaving the reviewer struggling to sum up the sheer revelation it presents with every few seconds of gameplay. They even comment on the Japanese gaming scene, suggesting that while they might have been grumbling about a lack of traditional RPGs, Zelda 64 is set to completely change the landscape. We see plenty of stunning screenshots showing Link riding Epona across vast plains, battling skeletons in a dungeon, facing off against some rather creepy enemies, and generally looking like the hero we all know and love. The write-up highlights features like the Z targeting system, which sounds ingenious for keeping track of foes, and praises the immersive gameplay and environments. It seems this Zelda is set to surpass even Mario 64 in its playability and truly put you in the game. Looks like a proper adventure is on the horizon. The next page continues the breathless preview of The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, still clearly making our man rather excited. It seems the combat system is getting a huge thumbs up, described as incredibly intuitive and revolutionary, even beyond just swinging Link's sword. A major focus here is the camera system, with the reviewer praising Nintendo for specifically addressing the camera issues people moaned about in Mario 64. The new Z targeting system is highlighted as a clever fix, allowing you to lock onto enemies or objects and maneuver around them effortlessly. They also talk up the amazing versatility of the context-sensitive B button, which changes function depending on what Link is doing, everything from climbing to reading signs. Apparently, it does an awful lot. The visuals continue to impress, with specific mention of real light sourcing making the environments look stunning and the animation, particularly for the horse riding, being incredibly immersive. It seems Link's fairy companion, Navi, is also along for the ride, though her specific purpose beyond just being there isn't quite clear yet. This page dives headfirst into the Pocket Monsters phenomenon hitting the N64 and 64D ED in Japan. It seems Nintendo might have a real weapon on their hands here, especially after single-handedly bringing the Game Boy back from the brink. They're hoping the arrival of these 3 games will send N64 sales through the roof. First up is Pikachu Genki Dechu, which translates to Pikachu is feeling great. It's an odd one, featuring everyone's favorite electric mouse and using a microphone. Apparently, you can give Pikachu all sorts of commands, like, wake up, catch the ball, and charmingly, you're stupid. Sounds like a right laugh. Then there's Pocket Monster Stadium, which lets you bring your Game Boy crew into the 3D arena for battles. Using that clever 64DD adapter you can see pictured, you pit your beloved monsters against others. The screenshots show turn-based fights, looking pretty sharp for the time. The third game, Pokemon Snap, is perhaps the strangest but also sounds the most intriguing. It's basically a first-person photography safari where you snap pictures of Pokemon in their natural habitats. The idea is to get decent shots, which sounds simple, but the reviewer says some monsters are harder to photograph than others. It's called bizarre, but also the most appealing of the bunch, which is quite the endorsement. The popularity of this series in Japan is mind-boggling, and it looks like these 64DD titles might just bring that craze over here. This page gives us a cracking preview of Zero X, the upcoming N64 racer. Written by the legendary Akira Yamawaki, who clearly wishes he'd spent more time playing it at Space World, it sounds like this game is going to be an absolute blast. This, at just 60% complete, the version shown off is already blowing minds with its sheer speed and incredibly smooth 60 frames per second frame rate. The reviewer reckons the craft feel like they're doing 500 miles per hour, even with a whopping 19 other racers on screen. It sounds like a technical marvel, maintaining that blistering pace by keeping the cars simple, but honestly, who cares when you're going that fast? The course design sounds top-notch, complementing the speed, and the bouncing effect from jumps adds a nice touch of realism, or as much realism as you can get in a future racer. There are multiple modes including GP Race, Time Attack, and Versus, and excitingly, the options screen confirmed a 64D add-on for course and machine editing. The tracks are split into 4 themed areas, each getting progressively harder. While 4-player suffers a bit of slowdown, it's nowhere near as bad as some other races about at the time. This is shaping up to be a truly phenomenal addition to the N64 library. Just need to wait until next Christmas for it to land over here apparently. This page continues our look at Zero X, and it sounds like the reviewer has got his hands on it, or at least seen more of it. He touches on the graphics, admitting they're simple, but reckons the sacrifice for that glorious 60 frames per second is absolutely worth it. Honestly, seeing those speed screenshots, like Captain Falcon, or whoever that is, hitting 718 kilometers per hour, you can see why. The colors and neon lighting get a shout out, which is nice. Day. The multiplayer modes get a mention too. Sounds like the 4-player mode struggles a bit compared to 1 or 2 players, which is a shame but not uncommon back then. Looking at you, Extreme G. The reviewer seems genuinely impressed overall, calling it a killer racing game, despite knowing it's only 60% finished. He's clearly itching to get his hands on the final version. We also get a huge section here for gameplay, a retailer. It's packed full of N64 console bundles, games like Mario Kart 64, obviously, GoldenEye, Turok, and all sorts of accessories like steering wheels and memory cards. There's a load of stuff available, even us imports if you fancy going down that route. It's pretty much a catalogue of N64, goodness if you were looking to splash some cash back then. Ubisoft's N64 game, Tonic Trouble, is an action-adventure platformer reminiscent of Rayman. Players control Ed, an alien who must restore order to Earth after dropping a vital item. The game features diverse environments, puzzles, and platforming challenges, with a focus on Ed's varied movement options, running, swimming, etc., and a cast of unusual characters, vegetables, mushrooms, a mammoth. Promising features include 60 FPS, CD quality sound, 3D graphics, and potential 64DD expansion. The game's quirky style and artistic presentation are highlighted, alongside a brief company overview and a preview of another article, Bother with a Mixer. This page gives us a look at Rare's latest offering, Banjo-Kazooie. It's all built around the rather clever idea that a bear and a bird tagging along together is better than just one bloke running about. You've got Banjo, the big friendly bear, and Kazooie, the bird who spends the whole game crammed into Banjo's backpack. Quite the arrangement. The core of the game is using both Banjo and Kazooie's unique abilities. Banjo does the ground-based stuff like running and climbing, while Kazooie handles the aerial maneuvers and some pointy beak action. They reckon this pairing, like Laurel and Hardy before them, creates a pretty lovable comedy duo. The game itself, previously known as Dream, was a big deal at E3, and looks utterly fantastic, with rich textures and environments that scream Rare quality. They're not shy about suggesting it could go head-to-head with the best 3D platformers out there, like Mario 64, which, frankly, is high praise indeed. With a March release planned, it looks like we've got a massive adventure, with a ton of personality coming our way. This page continues our look at Rare's upcoming platformer, Banjo-Kazooie. We delve a bit deeper into the characters, highlighting the classic Rare humor promised by the cast of in-betweeners you'll meet along the way, including the not-so-terrifying mumbo-jumbo. Banjo and Kazooie themselves sound like a cracking duo, each bringing their own skills to the table, like Banjo's rolling and Kazooie's aerial attacks and, residing in a backpack. The preview touches on the visual flair, confirming that the game looks every bit as good as we'd hoped, with lush environments like the swamps and forests looking absolutely stunning in the screenshots provided. It sounds like a truly massive and vibrant adventure is heading our way, pushing the N64's graphical capabilities nicely. The rest of the page seems to be entirely dedicated to a special reserve mail order advert listing games and hardware, which is handy if you're looking for some deals, but let's stick to the game itself for now, shall we? This page dives into the bloody world of Quake 64, confirming that id Software's Master of Massacres is indeed stomping its way onto the N64. If you're a fan of copious gore and blasting things into little pieces, this is definitely for you. The article paints a picture of a dark, atmospheric first-person shooter, packed with gruesome monsters and frantic action. It sounds like they've really beefed up the visuals from the PC original, swapping out those old 2D sprites for proper 3D polygons, which should make the demons and dungeons look suitably horrifying. Unlike the more stealthy approach of GoldenEye, Quake is all about running and gunning, throwing everything you've got at the creatures from hell. You'll be wielding classics like the shotgun and bazooka, alongside some delightful implements of destruction like nail guns and a thunderstaff. Good times. GoldenEye. Apparently, the PlayStation version got canned, but thankfully the N64 version is pushing ahead, even adding a much-needed deathmatch mode, which should keep us fragging for ages. It's looking set to arrive around spring '98, so get ready to start quaking in your boots. This page is all about getting your hands on some free stuff. Front and center is a giveaway shouting 100% relevant, taking a little jab at anyone who thought previous prizes weren't quite right. This time, they're giving away 5 copies of the highly rated FIFA 98, which apparently scored 87% in this very issue, and 3 esports baseball jackets. Lovely stuff. You've got to answer a simple question about the 1990 World Cup and send it in on a postcard. Just make sure you get it sent before the slightly questionable closing date of 3/1/02/97. Someone might want to check their calendar there. The prizes are being dished out based on the first few names drawn, getting jackets and carts, with the rest getting just carts. There's even a little screenshot of FIFA 98, so you know what you could be winning. Off to the side, it looks like an advert for a PlayStation magazine or special issue, PlayStation Pro, teasing a classified special report in issue 16 and bundling in a free Final Fantasy Spells and Secrets book. Might be worth a look if you swing both ways with consoles. This article, Talking Shop, provides a comprehensive guide to buying N64 consoles and games, focusing on maximizing value. It covers various methods, from buying new or via mail order, to purchasing used or renting. Pros and cons of each are detailed, including potential savings and drawbacks. The guide includes price comparisons across retailers, highlighting deals like an N64 bundle for £155. It also discusses importing games, emphasizing the importance of converters. The article aims to help readers avoid overpaying and get the best value for their N64 purchases, featuring classic titles like Mario 64 and GoldenEye. This page is all about getting the magazine itself delivered right to your door. They're tempting you in with a rather eye-catching spread featuring some flashy, dare I say, futuristic motor vehicles tearing it up over a city skyline. The big headline screams, "Subscribe," and promises you can get the next 13 issues for only £20. That's a decent saving when the RRP is £38.87 apparently. Below that, there's a form titled, Mad for N64 because, well, aren't we all? The text there is just gushing about how good the offer is and how you just have to fill it in to get your fix of N64 Pro. You've got your standard bits to fill out: name, address, postcode, and phone number. Then you tick your preferred payment method, check, postal order, or credit card, and pop in your card details and expiry date if that's your poison. You just send the form off to Database Direct, Free Post, Ellesmere Port. Job done. There's even a hotline number for the credit card folks if you're feeling lazy and don't fancy posting. Looks like a straightforward way to make sure you don't miss a single issue. This page dives deep into the world of N64 peripherals, specifically the glorious Rumble Pack Revolution, under the rather catchy title, Add-ons, Peripheral Vision 2. The intro text humorously links the topic to PJ and Duncan, those Geordie lads from Boycaka Grove, and their classic tune, Get Ready to Rumble. Who knew they were prophesying 64 gadgets? Yow. They're reviewing a whole bunch of these vibrating wonders. There's the budget-friendly Jolt Pack from Joytech, Nintendo's official, and pricier, Rumble Pack, the LX4 Tremor, and even an advanced Jolt pack that bundles in a memory card. Joytech's Tremor pack also gets a look in, noted for its dual rumble settings. Things get a bit more interesting with the Shockwave, which apparently rumbles based on sound picked up by an inbuilt microphone. A tenner more expensive, but it includes a memory card, saving you the memory pack swapping hassle. The Interactor is the real oddball, a rumble vest, or backpack, originally for other systems, adapted for the N64. It sounds a bit daft, and the reviewer admits it made them feel a little queasy, but it surprisingly worked well, even with GoldenEye. Finally, there's a competition asking which two legendary boxers took part in the infamous Rumble in the Jungle for a chance to win one of these Interactors. A good bit of fun. This page covers a solid range of feedback gadgets for your N64. Readers are enthusiastic about the new magazine, especially the promised free gift. Technical questions about Dr. 64, Wildcard 64, and the 64DD add-on were answered. Clarification was provided regarding Super Mario 64 2 and Super Mario RPG. A reader questioned review scores, addressed by stating a different scoring approach and explaining the magazine's launch timing. Positive feedback was received regarding the Japanese versions of Wave Race and Mario Kart 64, which are getting re-releases. Finally, recommendations like ISS 64 and Diddy Kong Racing were offered. This page features the Pro Post Letters section, where readers are sending in their thoughts and burning questions. We've got gamers asking about the elusive 64DD release, upcoming Tekken fighters, and sequels to absolute classics like Lilat Wars and the GoldenEye follow-up, Tomorrow Never Dies 007. There's a healthy debate brewing about how FIFA Road to World Cup 98 stacks up against the brilliant ISS 64, which, let's be honest, is the reigning champion of virtual football. Readers are clearly loving GoldenEye, with one even admitting to staying up until the early hours playing it. Sounds about right. The magazine team is dishing out answers, confirming the 64DD in Japan, and praising games like Fighter's Destiny. They're also addressing questions about import games, and explaining, quite frankly, that they moved from the PlayStation Pro world because the N64 offered a better, more exciting, and frankly more lucrative experience. There are a few adverts dotted around for importing games, and even playing Quake Online, alongside some nice screenshots of various games, mostly involving kicking a ball about. It's great to see the passion from the readers and the team firing back with solid info and a bit of attitude. This N64 gaming guide reviews titles AM, highlighting essential purchases with a special boot stamp. Diddy Kong Racing, ISS 64, Extreme G, and GoldenEye 007 receive praise for their quality and originality, while Lilat Wars is lauded as a revitalizing shoot-'em-up. Other games like Blast Corps are solid, but some, like Cruisin' USA and Dark Rift, are deemed less stellar. Doom 64 is recommended only as a secondary choice compared to GoldenEye and Duke Nukem 64, which improves on Doom's formula. The guide concludes that the N64 boasts a strong library, with some notable misses. This page reviews numerous N64 games, from Mario Kart 64 and Super Mario 64, praised as a 3D classic, to less successful titles like Mischief Makers and War Gods. Sports games like Madden 64 and Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, races like Wave Race 64 and San Francisco Rush, and other titles like Tetrisphere and Turok are also discussed. Criticisms are noted for some games, like Mischief Maker's poor graphics or Shadows of the Empire's dull sections. The page concludes with two top 10 lists, offering a comprehensive overview of the N64's best games. This page gives us a sneak peek at what's coming up next month in N64 Pro. Looks like they're lining up some crackers, mind you. They're talking about big hitters like Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. That's going to be something special, trust me. Plus for Zero, Banjo-Kazooie, Quake, and Conker's Quest. They promise all the usual good stuff too. Reviews, previews, cheats, and tips from the N64 pros themselves. Oh, and the little note at the bottom says, "Content's subject to change, we're not bloody clairvoyants, you know." Which is fair enough, really. The right side is an advert for Automobili Lamborghini on the N64, boasting, "No police, no camera, just action." It highlights speed and calls the N64 the fastest, most powerful games console on Earth.